Business Daily on Trust TV. The African Free Trade Continental Agreement was brought into the picture to enhance and place Africa on the map with regards to global trade. And most analysts and economic watchers are of the opinion that the African Free Trade Continental Agreement might have, a new challenge with the exit of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali from the ECOWAS community. But how much of an effect will this really have? Joining me now to dissect this development is an international business consultant, Dele Ayemibo. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily.
Good day. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Let us start off with the AfCFTA, obviously, where it's been over 3 years since we saw the introduction of that, and about 3 years since we saw the ratification of that by Nigeria. And like I did say, there are concerns that this will affect the trade dynamics within the African region. That is the exit of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso from the ECOWAS community. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No. The exit of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso is from ECOWAS, not from AU or AfCFTA. Both of them have signed. Three of them, rather, have signed, and they are both ratified. And the AfCFTA is the whole of Africa, under the AU, coordinating it with the AfCFTA Secretariat in Ghana. But the exit, according to the letter I saw, it was from ECOWAS, and mainly because of the issues they were having with the government of ECOWAS and the pressure. For me, it's just an indication they probably are not willing to return to democracy anytime soon, and they don't want to be pressured by all the issue within the region, of course. So maybe eventually dovetail into the implication. Maybe we'll discuss that as we go along in AfCFTA, but as it is right now, they are pulling out of ECOWAS, not pulling out of AU or pulling out of AfCFTA.
Well, thank you for that clarification, because there has been quite a number of conversations as to whether or not it will have any effect on the AfCFTA. But let us talk about, again, the AfCFTA, still sticking with that. What would you say is going to be the current, trade dynamics around that, with ECOWAS and other regions, that is the SADC, the EAC, and now these other countries that do not necessarily belong to the ECOWAS? Will there be any changes around, the dynamic of trade across Africa?
Yes, within West Africa, yes. Particularly for countries that rely on this market. Let me just give you some statistics. Burkina Faso population is about 22 million people, about $23 billion. Total imports actually is about 4.5 billion, and it's very diverse. Major import being PMS, that definitely not from Africa. Total excess about 9 billion, and mainly gold. Now, when you look at the dynamics of the trade of this country, you realize that it was easier for them to pull out because they actually do not do a lot of export to Africa. Majority of their export is to outside of Africa. So, for example, Burkina Faso export destination is mainly Switzerland. And about 5% of its export is going to Africa. So he can pull out because it's really not relying a lot, both on the import and export. It's importing about 30% of the item is importing from ECOWAS. That will be affected because that now will affect us, the countries in ECOWAS that are shipping to Burkina Faso. Same also for Mali. Mali is import from ECOWAS is about 30%. But Mali export to Africa is less than 1%. Majority of the export of Mali is going to UAE. 78% of that. Same for Niger. The import of Niger from Africa, mainly ECOWAS, is about 25%. Majority, 70% of export of Niger is to UAE, about 70%, only about 10% to Africa. So from all the indication, it shows that this country do not have so much reliance on Africa as far as their export is concerned. Maybe this explains the reason why they could take this stand, because they really depend on a number of countries outside of Africa. Probably that explains the reason why they could take the kind of decision they took within the West African sub-region.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying the part, especially with how much of, trade relations they have had in the past with African regions, and showing that these countries have had little to no export and import business with African nations. But let us look at the big four of ECOWAS now, speaking of countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire, who are regarded as the major countries within the ECOWAS bloc. Will this split from ECOWAS, or split of these other countries from ECOWAS, have any impact on these major four countries? And, regarding their trade and levels of trade amongst themselves, what should we expect moving forward?
Definitely. We are losing a market of about 70 million people. This country together is about 70 million people. So we are losing that market because it's not going to be free trade again with this market the way we've had it. And that's a challenge for these big four and for the whole of West Africa. We are losing a market potential of about 12 billion. The import of these three countries put together is about $12 billion. We are losing that market demand from this particular country. Of course, it's also going to reduce trade flow because of the introduction now of tariff and non-tariff barrier by virtue of them pulling out of ECOWAS. We expect an increase in transit time. Now, if I'm going to Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, and Senegal, I'm better off passing through these countries to those regions. Now, I have to pass through other regions. If the pulling out is going to affect, I don't know the level of effect it's going to have on cross-border movement, but if what is expected under ECOWAS is anything to go by, I might have to go through the West African coast to get to this country, which would be a longer route for me. So increasing the transit time of shipment by road to that region. There's also a loss of trade volume, trade volume of Nigeria in particular. Nigeria export Burkina Faso, about 0.7% of Nigeria export go to Burkina Faso, about 0.1% of Nigeria go to Mali, and about 2.7% of Nigerian export go to Niger, because Niger is closer. So it's definitely going to affect these countries in West Africa, because they are the ones doing the shipment to these three countries that are pulled out.
Okay, let's bring it home now to Nigeria particularly. Like you have rightly stated, these countries are all border nations. But let's talk to issues around supply chain disruptions and Nigeria as a country. Do you expect to see any form of supply chain disruptions within Nigeria as a country?
Yes. Now, like I said, what I'm not sure of is the degree they are pulling out. What does the effect? Are they going to still allow free movement? If they are not going to allow, which is what ECOWAS and ETLS guarantee, if they are not going to allow, then we'll be having a challenge with supply chain disruption. Of course, I expect supply chain disruption, which is why I talk about the fact that now I expect the fact that we might begin to see a longer transit time for movement of goods from Nigeria to countries like Morocco, Senegal, Libya, and Algeria, which Nigeria currently trade with, but now we might have to go through other routes. But if we are going to go through this country, now we might have delay in movement because they might not impose fees and other charges for us to private that country, since they are no more within the trading bloc, having pulled out trading bloc. So definitely, I expect a supply chain disruption, and of course, increased cost of doing business now in terms of movement by road across this country to the destination that we want to go, through which we was passed through this country to get to those destinations. And of course, you expect that the tariff also is likely going to come back, and that will increase the cost of doing business and export for Nigerian businesses. Okay,
still on the AfCFTA, like I said in my introduction, it's been about 3 years since the ratification of that agreement within Nigeria. And we have seen this agreement take center stage in areas like the eastern part of Africa, and we are seeing, some results from that agreement. However, that may not seem to be the case within the West African region and Nigeria particularly. Can you tell us the benefit of the AfCFTA so far within Nigeria? Tangible results that we have seen from that agreement?
We've not started trading. There is a guided trade initiative of the AfCFTA Secretariat in Ghana, of which Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana, and recently South Africa has been part of. The first trade was done by Kenya to South Africa, export of exile battery, but Nigeria has not. I don't know, maybe because of the transition, but the transition now to the new government is now over 6-7 months, and we still have not seen the approval of the way Nigeria is going to trade under AfCFTA in terms of documentation requirement, how to get this document process and the like. So currently, Nigeria is not enjoying any benefit under AfCFTA. Rather, the countries that are already involved in the guided trade initiative are the one enjoying it. So, I mean, there's so much conversation going on this, pressure on, and waiting for the National Action Committee headed by Awolowo, former NEPC CEO, to be able to do something about it, because we really are not hearing anything from them. And it's good this conversation is happening on this platform for them to begin to tell us exactly what is delaying the implementation or the approval by the presidency, so that we can begin to trade. But as it is right now, I can't say we have any benefit yet, because we've not started trading under the AfCFTA.
Okay, from your point of view, would you say some sort of economic or monetary union would assist or help, with strengthening the ECOWAS, the West African bloc? Because there has been conversations around, one currency within the bloc or one currency across Africa. Do you agree with such conversations, around having some sort of monetary or economic union around that?
In fact, 120%. And the reason is simple. In fact, the AfCFTA, in conjunction with AfCFTA Secretariat, have to set up a Pan-African payment and settlement system, so that we don't rely on euro, dollar, and pounds for us to trade within Africa, and the fact that I have to pay Ghanaian, and then I need to go through a bank in New York to be able to pay into an account in Ghana. That is being sorted out with a Pan-African payment system. So having an economic union that will make us to have a single currency is definitely a welcome idea. How that will play out, the nuance around that, we have to determine by the economists. I don't know how that will work out, but I know that's a discussion ongoing, and that's a very necessary conversation we need to have. But let's even start trading first and see the growth. So by the time we begin to see the result and see what we can do, if we will now have economic union or we have a single currency, of course, it becomes easier for every country to want to be part of it. But in terms of having a single currency, it has been confirmed that $5 billion is paid in charges by African countries just in trade alone in other currency. So definitely we can avoid that charge if we begin to deal with use the Pan-African payment and settlement system for payment, and avoiding those charges that we have to incur as a continent, because we are using a third currency or other currency to effect payment for trade even within the African continent.
Okay, there's been the continuous conversation around trade financing and growing infrastructure within not just Nigeria, but across Africa. And that is one of the ways we will, harness the full benefits of the AfCFTA. So far, we understand there has been some things that have been put into place by the Nigeria Customs Service and other agencies of government. But let's hear from you as an international trade expert. What other aspects, so what infrastructure should we put in place to enjoy the full benefits of AfCFTA once we commence trading under this agreement?
In terms of trade financing, I expect the government to support trade using export credit insurance. We need to find a way to encourage financiers to find it comfortable to finance, and give exporter also the confidence to invest more money through the export credit insurance, to be able to ensure that even when they are shipping to countries where they are not able to get trade finance instruments like letter of credit guarantee and the like, they are still able to get financing, because there's an export credit insurance that ensures that payment is secure. Number one. Number two is the port. There is a lot of delay happening at the port. This time around with custom. Custom has done reform. I am an exporter and I've experienced the reform of custom for export The issue now is not about custom, it's about the operation at the port. Now we'll be talking about the MPA, Nigeria Shippers Council, to be able to help ensure movement of truck within the Apapa axis, because about 60-70% of trade still happen within those axes, Tinkan and Apapa. Can we solve this problem once and for all? In fact, why that problem is being solved, can we encourage those using badges? The charges of MPA, the charges of government agency is making the badge system becoming expensive. The road is having issues. We can't get into the port easily. We are now using badge to be able to move on the waterway and find it easy to be able to meet up with the vessel. So you don't meet the vessel and pay charges for rollover. Then the government, who has not helped fix the road, is charging excessively these companies that are using waterways to be able to make life easy for trade businesses in Nigeria of today, that we need serious foreign exchange, that we need to encourage seriously export. We are still charging them both at the airport and at the seaport to make Nigerian trade uncompetitive. We need to do something about that.
International business consultant Dele Ayemibo, thank you for the very insightful conversation on AfCFTA and, you know, ECOWAS and how we can harness the full potentials of this agreement. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily today.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
This is the point where we say our goodbyes today on Business Daily. Unfortunately, our time is fast spent, but insightful conversation we did have there. Do join us again, same time, same station tomorrow, as we will be back again, as usual, to bring you updates and trends in the Nigerian business space and global economy. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.